Reba McEntire is defending her daughter-in-law, Kelly Clarkson.
That takes guts to send your child off, never see them again.
No, I mean, we were friends before. We've even worked together since then, too, like via The Voice as well.
They call her the Queen of Country. But at 70, Reba McEntire is trading her crown for a moment of raw, unfiltered honesty. For years, rumors swirled about her true feelings regarding Kelly Clarkson following a messy family fracture. Today, the silence ends. The truth isn't a scandal, it's a testament. Beyond the duets and the divorces lies a bond that defies Nashville's expectations, proving that in a world of temporary hits, their sisterhood is the only thing evergreen. She loves Kelly. She loves Kelly not, that we will see. Mother-in-law, no more. If you listen to the gossip columns, you'd think Reba McEntire and Kelly Clarkson spent the last few years avoiding each other at award shows like two people who accidentally swiped right on the wrong person. The narrative was perfect for attention. The legendary mother-in-law caught in the middle of a nasty divorce between her superstar protege and her own stepson. People wanted a soap opera. They wanted Reba to pick a side, to cast Kelly out of the family circle, and to tighten the reins on the Blackstock legacy. But if you know anything about Reba McEntire, you know she doesn't play by anyone else's script. At 70, Reba is finally speaking on the depth of this relationship, and the truth is much warmer and more complicated than a headline. She doesn't see Kelly as an ex-relative. She sees her as a soul sister. To understand why Reba is so protective of Kelly, you have to go back to long before there was a marriage certificate involved. They weren't family by law first, they were family by spirit. Reba first saw that spark in Kelly, back when the rest of the world just saw a girl from Texas winning a singing show. Reba saw a mirror of herself, a powerhouse voice with a "don't mess with me" work ethic. Their first big moment together was the 2007 duet of "Because of You." It's ironic, looking back, because that song is all about family trauma and the cycle of heartbreak. When they stood on that stage together, the chemistry was undeniable. It wasn't just a veteran singer helping out a newcomer, it was a passing of the torch. Reba has often said that singing with Kelly is like plugging into a light socket. There's a frequency they share that most people can't tune into. That collaboration led to a massive tour where they spent months on a bus together, sharing meals, stories, and the exhaustion of life on the road. By the time Kelly started dating Reba's stepson, Brandon Blackstock, the foundation was already poured. Reba wasn't just welcoming a daughter-in-law, she was welcoming her best friend into the house. When the marriage between Kelly and Brandon hit the rocks in 2020, the world waited for the fallout. Divorce is messy, but high-profile Nashville divorces are a different beast entirely. Because Reba had been married to Brandon's father, Narvel, for 26 years before their own split, she knew exactly what Kelly was walking into. She didn't offer judgment, she offered a roadmap. Reba has been very clear in her truth about this period. She loved them both. Brandon was her son in every way that mattered, and Kelly was her peer. While the public looked for a feud, Reba and Kelly were quietly texting. Reba's philosophy has always been simple. Life is hard enough without turning your back on the people who understand your heart. She told interviewers at the time that she was pulling for both of them, but behind the scenes, she was Kelly's rock. She understood the specific pain of having your private life dismantled in front of a camera. She understood the weight of trying to protect kids, River and Remington, while your own world is spinning out of control. The truth, Reba tells now, is that she never once felt the need to divorce Kelly. In Reba's book, Once You're in Her Heart, You're There for Good. The bond was tested again in the most painful way possible in 2025. When Brandon Blackstock passed away after his battle with cancer, the family was shattered.
Sad news to report now. Kelly Clarkson's ex-husband, Brandon Blackstock, has died.
This wasn't just a celebrity news story. It was a tragedy that hit the very core of their blended family. At 70, Reba found herself in the role of the matriarch, holding together a group of people who had every reason to be distant. She stood by Kelly as they navigated the grief of the children. Reba's recent words about this time are heartbreakingly simple. She talks about the legacy of laughter Brandon left behind, but she also speaks with immense pride about how Kelly handled the storm. She tells the truth about Kelly's strength, calling her the best mama I know. When Kelly had to cancel her Vegas residency to be there for her kids during Brandon's final days, Reba was the one cheering the loudest from the sidelines. She didn't see a pop star. She saw a woman putting her family first, just like Reba has done her entire career. Their relationship has evolved from mentor and student to mother and daughter-in-law to two survivors who have seen the worst life can throw at them and come out the other side with their voices intact. Reba often jokes that she kept Kelly in the divorce. And while it's a funny line, the reality is much deeper. At 70, you stop caring about what looks good on paper and start caring about what feels real in the room. When Reba looks at Kelly today, she doesn't see the American Idol or the talk show host. She sees a woman who has walked through the fire and didn't let it burn her. Reba's truth is that Kelly Clarkson is one of the few people in the world who truly gets her. They speak the same language, a mix of Texas grit and Nashville polish. Whether they are sitting on the coaches' chairs at The Voice or just texting about their kids, the connection is effortless. Reba describes their relationship as evergreen. It doesn't change with the seasons of their lives. It doesn't matter who is married to whom or whose name is on the legal documents. What matters is the music and the mutual respect. Reba has gathered every bit of love she has and poured it into this friendship, making it clear that no matter what the headlines say, she and Kelly are a team. This is the truth Reba wants the world to know. Loyalty isn't about bloodlines. It's about who shows up when the lights go out. Kelly showed up for Reba during her toughest years, and Reba has returned the favor tenfold. Their collaborations weren't just business moves, they were prayers set to a melody. And as Reba reflects on 7 decades of life, she counts her friendship with Kelly as one of her greatest hits, one that will never go out of style. But to understand the mentor, you have to understand the mountain she climbed. Chalky to center stage. Long before the sequins, the sitcoms, and the sold-out arenas, Reba McEntire was just a girl in the Oklahoma dirt who knew how to handle a horse and a heartbreak. Born in McAllister and raised on an 8,000-acre ranch in the tiny town of Chalky, Reba wasn't just country by brand, she was country by bone. She was a third-generation rodeo brat. Her grandfather, John McEntire, was a world champion steer roper, and her daddy, Clark McEntire, followed right in those dusty footsteps, snagging 3 world titles of his own. In the McEntire household, work didn't start when the sun came up. It started when the horses were still shadows in the dark. Growing up on that ranch wasn't a romanticized music video. It was gritty, physical, and often unforgiving. Reba has often shared stories of waking up at 4 a.m. to eat a breakfast of cowboy bread and greasy eggs before heading out to gather cattle. She wasn't just watching from the sidelines, she was in the thick of it, castrating bulls and giving worm medicine alongside her siblings. This wasn't a life for the sentimental. Once, during a branding session in the blistering Oklahoma heat, Reba actually passed out from heat stroke. She didn't get a day off. She woke up, took a swig of water, and went right back to the branding irons. That's the kind of steel that underpins her 70-year legacy. It's the same, don't complain, just work harder attitude she would eventually see in Kelly Clarkson. But while Clark McEntire taught his children about the grit of the land, their mother, Jacqueline, taught them about the grace of a melody. Jacqueline had her own dreams of being a country star, but she put them on a shelf to raise 4 kids and keep the ranch running. To pass the time during the endless drives across the country to various rodeos, Jackie turned the family car into a classroom. She taught Reba, Peke, and Susie how to harmonize, pushing them to hit the right notes until they sounded like a single unit. By the time Reba was in high school, they were the Singing McEntires, performing at local clubs, dance halls, and of course, rodeos. Even as the music started to take hold, Reba's heart was still in the arena. She wasn't just a singer who liked horses. She was a competitive barrel racer. She spent 10 years chasing cans, dreaming of a world championship title that would match her father's. She's famously said that she never formally learned to ride. Her dad just told her to get on him, get in the brush, and find some cattle. And she figured it out. That self-reliance became the blueprint for her career. She wasn't waiting for permission to succeed. She was just looking for an opening. That opening finally came in December 1974. Reba was a sophomore at Southeastern Oklahoma State University, studying to be an elementary school teacher. A backup plan she kept just in case the music thing didn't pan out. Her father had helped her land a gig singing the national anthem at the National Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City. It was a high-pressure spot, but Reba was in her element. Among the thousands in the crowd was a cowboy singer named Red Steagall. When he heard that clear, powerful Oklahoma lilt echoing through the arena, he knew he wasn't just hearing a local girl, he was hearing a star. Red invited Reba to Nashville to record some demos. In March 1975, she and her mom made the trip that would change everything. By November, she had a contract with Mercury Records. But Nashville in the mid-70s was a boys' club, and the industry didn't quite know what to do with a ranch girl who didn't want to sound like a pop crossover act. Her first few singles barely made a dent on the charts. She didn't even have her own band yet. She'd show up to shows and have to play with whoever the venue had on hand. Sometimes the bands didn't even know country music, leaving Reba to fill the time by telling jokes and stories, a skill that would later make her a natural on television. It took years of grinding before she truly broke through. She spent nearly a decade in what she calls the starving years, traveling better at reading road maps than her own bus drivers. But the rodeo hadn't just given her a voice, it had given her the endurance of a long-distance rider. She didn't let the slow start break her. Instead, she took control. She eventually moved to MCA Records and told the executives she wanted to get more country. She wanted the steel guitar and the fiddle, not the polished orchestras they were trying to force on her. That decision led to her first #1 hit, Can't Even Get the Blues, and eventually the landmark album My Kind of Country. She had finally found her lane. She was no longer just Clark McEntire's daughter or a rodeo brat who could carry a tune. She was a force of nature. By the mid-'80s, she was winning Female Vocalist of the Year and Entertainer of the Year awards, proving that a girl from Chalky could conquer the world without ever losing her accent. She had climbed the mountain, but as Reba would soon learn, the view from the top can change in a heartbeat. Grit, however, can't protect you from the ground falling out from under your feet. For My Broken Heart. Success in Nashville usually means you've finally made it to the smooth pavement. But for Reba, the early 90s proved that the road can crumble without a second's notice. By 1991, she was at the absolute peak of her powers. She had successfully transitioned from a rodeo singer to a household name, racking up awards and sold-out dates across the globe. She had a tight-knit road family, a band that was more like a brotherhood, and a career that seemed untouchable. Then came the morning of March 16, 1991, a date that remains the darkest marker in her 70-year journey. After a private show in San Diego, Reba's band and crew boarded 2 planes to head to the next stop. Reba, suffering from bronchitis, decided to stay behind for one more night of rest with her husband, Narvel. In the middle of the night, the phone rang. One of the planes had crashed into a mountain shortly after takeoff. There were no survivors. In an instant, Reba lost 8 members of her band and crew, including her tour manager and close friends. It was a tragedy that would have ended most careers, leaving a void too deep to fill with a melody. The grief was suffocating. Reba has often spoken about the fog of those first few weeks, the way the world kept moving while her heart stayed buried in that California hillside. She felt an immense weight of survivor's guilt, wondering why she had been spared while the people she loved were gone. But Reba didn't hide from the pain. She did what her mama and the Oklahoma dirt taught her to do. She put her boots on, and she went to work. she turned that localized agony into one of the most important albums in the history of country music, For My Broken Heart. If you listen to that record today, you can hear the change in her voice. The technical precision was still there, but it was layered with a new kind of vulnerability. She wasn't just singing songs, she was exorcising demons. The title track became an anthem for anyone who had ever woken up to a world that looked exactly the same but felt fundamentally broken. This was the moment Reba stopped being just a star and became a companion to the grieving. She showed the world that it was okay to be shattered, as long as you eventually started picking up the pieces. This period of her life is crucial to the bond she shares with Kelly Clarkson today. When Kelly went through her own public shattering during her divorce, Reba didn't just offer platitudes. She offered the perspective of someone who had walked through the valley of the shadow of death and come out the other side. Reba knew that the only way out is through. She encouraged Kelly to use her music as a shield and a scalpel to cut away the rot and protect the heart. Reba's 1991 tragedy taught her that life is fragile, a lesson she carried into her 70th year with a sense of urgency. The aftermath of the crash also forced Reba to reinvent herself. She couldn't just go back to the way things were. She started exploring new avenues, taking her first real steps into acting. She appeared in the cult classic Tremors and eventually took on the role of Annie Oakley in Annie Get Your Gun on Broadway. These weren't just career moves, they were survival tactics. She needed to be someone else for a while to handle being herself. This versatility became her trademark, proving that a country singer could be a movie star, a Broadway lead, and a business mogul all at once. Through the 90s, Reba's music shifted toward stories of resilient women. Hits like Fancy and Is There Life Out There became rallying cries for women who were tired of being told what they couldn't do. Reba was no longer just singing about rodeo life. She was singing about the domestic rodeo, the struggle to balance dreams with reality. She became the face of a new kind of female empowerment in Nashville, one that didn't involve burning bridges, but rather building bigger houses for everyone to live in. By the time the decade closed, Reba had transformed her grief into a legacy of ironclad resilience. She had learned that a broken heart doesn't have to stay broken. It can be fused back together with something stronger. This kintsugi approach to life, where the cracks are filled with gold, is exactly what she would later model for Kelly. Reba showed that you can lose everything and still find a reason to sing. She didn't just survive the storm, she learned how to command the lightning. She didn't just survive the storm, she built an empire in the rain. The Starstruck Empire. By the late 80s and early 90s, Reba McEntire realized that if she wanted to be the queen, she couldn't just wait for the industry to hand her a seat at the table, she had to own the table itself. This was the era where Reba transformed from a singer with a great voice into a CEO with a vision. Along with her second husband and manager, Narvel Blackstock, she founded Starstruck Entertainment in 1988. This wasn't just a small office with a couple of filing cabinets. It was a massive multi-million-dollar complex in Nashville that eventually housed everything from a recording studio to a booking agency, music publishing, and even a jet charter service. Reba wasn't just playing business, she was building a fortress. Starstruck was a game changer because it allowed Reba to control every single aspect of her brand. In an industry where female artists were often told what to wear, how to sing, and where to tour, Reba was the one making the calls. She was one of the first country stars to realize that Reba wasn't just a name, it was an enterprise. This business-first mindset is exactly why she was so well-positioned to mentor Kelly Clarkson decades later. She knew that the music business is 10% music and 90% business, and she wanted to make sure the women coming up behind her knew how to read a contract, as well as they could hit a high note. But the empire wasn't just about office buildings. Reba knew she needed to expand her reach beyond the radio dial. In 1990, she made her film debut in the cult classic Tremors, proving she could hold her own on a movie set. But her real crossover moment came in 2001, when she took over the lead role in the Broadway revival of Annie, Get Your Gun. Critics were skeptical. Nashville stars on Broadway didn't always translate. But Reba didn't just play Annie Oakley, she became her. She received rave reviews, with the New York Times calling her performance the most vital and heart-catching the show had ever seen. She proved that her Oklahoma charm could win over even the toughest critics in Manhattan. That Broadway stint was the springboard for her most famous non-musical venture, the sitcom Reba. Premiering in late 2001, the show introduced her to an entirely new generation of fans who didn't even know she sang country music. As Reba Hart, a sarcastic, resilient single mom navigating a messy divorce and a quirky blended family, she wasn't just acting.
And I think that Reba is definitely one of those artists that she knows that she's not going to please everybody.
She was channeling the same survivor energy that had defined her real life. The show ran for 6 successful seasons and remains a staple in syndication today. It was on the set of Reba that she perfected the art of the wisecracking matriarch, a role she still plays in her friendships and on screen today. During this time, Starstruck also began managing other massive stars, including Blake Shelton and, eventually, Kelly Clarkson. This is where the personal and professional lines really started to blur. Kelly wasn't just a client, she was family. Reba watched as Kelly navigated the same empire-building struggles she had faced. She saw Kelly fight for her artistic freedom, just like Reba had done back at MCA. When the world saw Kelly as a pop star, Reba saw her as a fellow business owner who happened to have a once-in-a-generation voice. Reba's empire-building years taught her that you can't be a queen if you're afraid to get your hands dirty in the boardroom. She launched a clothing line, a bedding collection, and even a jewelry line at Dillard's. She became a lifestyle brand long before that was a buzzword. At 70, looking back on the Starstruck years, Reba's truth is that she never did it just for the money. She did it for the independence. She wanted to make sure that if the music ever stopped, the engine would still be running. She built a world where she couldn't be ignored. And she made sure there was plenty of room for her soul sister, Kelly, to stand right beside her. Even when her marriage to Narvel ended in 2015 and the business partnership changed, the empire didn't crumble. Reba took the reins herself, proving that she was the architect all along. She showed that you can lose your partner without losing your power. This is the grit she passed down to Kelly, the knowledge that no matter who leaves the room, the queen stays on the throne. Even empires have their sunset, leading to a new kind of dawn. The Queen's third act. At 70, most people are looking for a rocking chair and a quiet porch. But Reba McEntire is currently busier than a one-armed paper hanger. Entering 2026, she isn't just resting on her laurels, she's in the middle of a massive creative second wind that most artists half her age would envy. This third act is defined by a sense of peace that only comes when you stop trying to prove yourself and start just enjoying the ride. Reba has moved past the era of building empires and into the era of savoring them, and she's doing it with a new partner by her side and a renewed spark in her eye. The biggest part of this new chapter is her relationship with actor Rex Linn. After decades of high-pressure business marriages, Reba finally found what she calls her perfect union. They reconnected in 2020 during the pandemic, and their romance was built on what they call coffee camp, daily long-distance chats that allowed them to fall in love with each other's minds before they ever spent time in the same room. By the time they hit the red carpet at the 2025 Emmys, the world knew they were the real deal, especially when they confirmed their engagement. Seeing Reba at 70, glowing next to a man who clearly adores her, is the ultimate happily ever after for a woman who has sung about so much heartbreak. Professionally, Reba is still a titan. She's currently starring in her hit NBC sitcom Happy's Place, which was just renewed for another season. The show is a full-circle moment for her, reuniting her with her real-life best friend Melissa Peterman, and even featuring Rex Linn as a series regular. It's like Reba decided to take all her favorite people and put them in a room together, just so she could go to work and laugh every day. On top of that, she's been a staple on The Voice, serving as the queen mother of the coaching panel and leading Team Reba with the same mix of maternal warmth and competitive fire she's always had. But even with all this success, the truth Reba keeps coming back to is her role as the matriarch of her complicated, blended family. This became especially important in late 2025 following the sudden passing of Brandon Blackstock. Despite the legal battles and the divorce drama of years past, Reba stepped up to support Kelly Clarkson and the grandkids during their darkest hour. At 70, she's the glue. She's the one Kelly calls for advice, not just about music, but about life. Recently, news even broke that Kelly has been leaning on Reba to help her navigate the dating world again, showing that their bond has transitioned from professional respect to a deep, lifelong mentorship. Reba's third act is proof that age is just a number if you've got enough heart. She's still releasing music, still filming top-rated TV shows, and still finding ways to surprise her fans. She's not trying to be the young thing in Nashville. She's content being the legendary thing. She's reached a point where she can look at her career and her family, both the ones she was born with and the ones she chose, and say she did it her way. She's living her Happy's Place every single day. The truth Reba McEntire is telling at 70 isn't a bombshell or a bitter reveal. It's the simple, powerful fact that love survives the contracts and the credits. Through the dust of the Oklahoma rodeo, the smoke of the 1991 tragedy, and the glare of the sitcom lights, she has remained constant. Her relationship with Kelly Clarkson is the ultimate proof of her character, a bond that didn't break when the family tree was shaken. Reba doesn't just sing about fancy or the night the lights went out in Georgia anymore. She lives a story of enduring loyalty that proves friendship is the strongest form of family. As she looks toward the future, the Queen isn't stepping down. She's just making more room on the throne for the people she loves. She has taught us that you can survive the unthinkable and still come out with a smile that lights up a room. At 70, her voice is just as clear as it was in Chalky, but it carries the weight of a life well lived. She and Kelly stand together as two titans who refuse to let the industry or personal heartbreaks define them. Their story is a reminder that while fame is fleeting, the people you choose to walk through the fire with are the ones who truly matter. Reba's legacy isn't just her music. It's the way she's loved her people with everything she's got. If you enjoyed that bit on Reba and Kelly's bond, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a story about the celeb lives and updates in Hollywood.